4 kilometers below the surface of the Atlantic Ocean, in complete darkness and near freezing water, lies the most famous ship in history, the Titanic. A massive British ocean liner that was supposed to be the pride of the empire and a symbol of 20th century engineering. Instead, it became the most notorious maritime disaster of the modern era. On the night of April 14th, 1912, it struck an iceberg and sank in just 2 hours and 40 minutes, taking 1,500 people down with it. That was 113 years ago, and the Titanic is still down there, 3,800 meters deep, about 600 kilometers off the coast of Newfoundland. For an entire century, it felt like a ghost. We knew it was there, we just couldn't see it. Its exact location wasn't even confirmed until 1985. But now, thanks to the latest technology, we've finally been able to see inside in ways we never could before. In 2024 and 2025, the Titanic was fully scanned in stunning 3D detail for the very first time. But first, let's talk about what kind of ship this actually was. The Titanic was built in Belfast at the Harland and Wolff shipyard. Nearly 270 meters long, 9 decks, 4 massive funnels, 3 functional, and 1 added purely for looks. When it launched in 1911, it was the largest moving object ever built by human hands. First class wasn't just a cabin, it was a floating 5-star hotel. French cuisine restaurants, a swimming pool, a gym, a library, fresh flowers shipped in from London. The most expensive suite would cost over $100,000 in today's money. On board were some of the wealthiest people alive. Millionaire John Jacob Astor, Macy's owner Isidore Straus, and industrialist Benjamin Guggenheim. Third class was a completely different world. Immigrants, mostly Irish and Eastern European, were heading to America hoping for a better life. They slept in cramped shared cabins and had almost no access to the upper decks. Of the more than 2,000 people on board, only 710 survived. The Titanic didn't just sink, it broke in two. As the stern rose nearly vertical, the hull couldn't take the stress and tore apart. The bow and stern fell separately and now rest about 600 meters apart, divided by a massive debris field. Thousands of objects scattered across the ocean floor. The bow is almost recognizable. It sits upright in the silt, largely intact. This is the image you've seen in every famous photograph. The stern is the complete opposite. The impact with the bottom was catastrophic. The decks collapsed into each other. The steel twisted and crushed beyond recognition. Today, it's nothing but a tangled heap of metal. Only about half the ship survived in any recognizable form. But even like this, broken, rusted, buried in the deep, the Titanic is still keeping its secrets. And slowly, one by one, giving them up. Now let's talk about how the Titanic was actually found. For 73 years after the disaster, nobody knew exactly where it was. The ocean is vast, and searching for a specific object 4 kilometers down is nearly impossible. It wasn't until September 1st, 1985, that a joint French-American expedition led by oceanographer Robert Ballard from the Woods Hole Oceanographic Institution finally located the wreck. Here's a detail that was kept quiet for years. Ballard's real mission wasn't the Titanic at all. The US Navy was funding him to locate 2 sunken American nuclear submarines, the Thresher and the Scorpion, lost in the Atlantic in the 1960s. The Navy gave him permission to search for the Titanic only with whatever time was left over. That was 12 days. And in those 12 days, he found it. First came one of the ship's boilers lying on the ocean floor, then the ship itself. When the first clear image of the bow appeared on the monitor, the room went completely silent. Everyone understood they weren't just looking at wreckage, They were looking at the grave of 1,500 people. Dozens of expeditions followed. In 1986, Ballard returned with the deep-sea submersible Alvin and a small robot called Jason Jr. For the first time, they went inside. The little robot, roughly the size of a lawnmower, descended through the famous grand staircase shaft. What it found was extraordinary. Despite more than 70 years underwater, many rooms were remarkably well preserved. Bronze chandeliers still hung from ceilings. Wooden wall panels were still standing. Carved decorations were still visible. Wood normally rots within years in seawater, but here, the extreme depth, near freezing temperatures, absence of light, and almost no oxygen had slowed everything down. Now, many people assume the grand staircase still exists in all its glory. It doesn't. The oak staircase itself collapsed almost as soon as the ship began to sink. Water rushed in through the glass dome above it, and the staircase was torn loose and floated away. What remains today is just a deep, open shaft dropping through several decks. That's exactly where Jason Jr. descended in 1986. So what survived? Surprisingly, a lot. The most astonishing room on the entire ship is the Turkish bath, a first-class luxury lounge decorated in an Ottoman style, with star and crescent ceiling patterns, mosaic tiles, bronze lamps, and carved chairs. When researchers sent cameras inside in 2005, it looked as if it had been sealed for 40 or 50 years, not over a century. The bronze fixtures were nearly intact. The wall tiles were still in place, traces of decorative flooring still visible on the ground. It's the best preserved room on the ship, protected deep inside the hull, away from currents and salvagers. The first-class cabins tell their own story. Most of the wood and fabric is long gone, eaten away by deep-sea organisms. But small objects remain. A wash basin with its ceramic bowl and pitcher, still sitting on its stand. A single shoe lying on the floor. A brass bed frame with no mattress. These ordinary personal things hit harder than any grand ballroom, because behind every shoe is a real person, a real life, and a real last moment. And then there's the engine room. This is where the Titanic's engineers and stokers worked. It's better preserved than most of the ship. Metal outlasts wood, and it holds the story's most powerful moment. Eyewitness accounts from survivors always spoke of the engineers staying at their posts until the very end, keeping the generators running so the lights stayed on and the radio kept transmitting distress calls. Of more than 30 engineers on board, not one survived. In 2024 and 2025, the 3D scan confirmed it beyond any doubt. One of the boiler room steam valves was found left in the open position, meaning the engineers were actively maintaining power to the generators right up until the end. They died at their stations, doing their jobs to the last second. Now let's talk about the debris field, the vast stretch of ocean floor surrounding the Titanic, scattered with hundreds of thousands of objects. When the ship broke apart and sank, everything inside poured out. That rain of wreckage and personal belongings spread across nearly 3 kilometers. Today, the debris field is essentially an open-air museum, except the sky here is 4 kilometers of freezing water. You can find everything down there. Suitcases, bottles of champagne, many still sealed. Plates, children's toys, pocket watches stopped at different times. Eyeglasses, combs, inkwells, banknotes. Some have been recovered and are still legible. There's a striking amount of shoes on the seafloor. Tanned leather isn't broken down by local bacteria the way wood or bone is, and pairs often lie close together. A man's boot and a woman's shoe, side by side. That's not coincidence. That's where 2 people once lay. Their bodies were claimed by the ocean long ago. But the shoes remain. It's one of the most haunting sights at the entire wreck site. And now, one of the most remarkable discoveries in the entire history of Titanic exploration. In the very last hours of the 2024 expedition, on the final day of work, researchers stumbled across a bronze statue of the goddess Diana. Nearly 2 meters tall, it once stood at the center of the first-class lounge. When the Titanic sank, the lounge collapsed and Diana fell to the bottom. For 112 years, she lay there in the darkness, completely unnoticed. She was found lying face up, perfectly intact. The bronze features are so well preserved you can make out her eyelashes. The Titanic also carried special safes for the jewelry and cash of first-class passengers. Several have been recovered over the years. In 1987, a French team opened one of them live on American television. Inside, banknotes, coins, jewelry. There's a legend that the ship was also carrying an illustrated manuscript of Omar Khayyam's Rubaiyat, bound in a cover set with 1,500 rubies, emeralds, and turquoise. The object was real. It was purchased in London shortly before the voyage. It's believed to still be somewhere in the debris field. If it's ever found, it would be a sensation on a global scale. But the biggest achievement of recent years is the complete digital twin of the Titanic. The company Magellan, working with National Geographic, spent 6 weeks capturing over 700,000 images and millions of laser measurements. Processing all that data took nearly 2 years. In April 2025, the documentary Titanic, Digital Resurrection was released, and the world saw the result for the first time. Scientists can now walk through the ship in digital space, examining every rivet and every patch of rust in full detail. It's an entirely new era in the study of sunken ships, and the digital twin brought new discoveries. It turned out the ship broke apart at a steeper angle than previously believed. The stern flipped far more violently than shown in James Cameron's film. Previously unknown damage was found near the keel, and most importantly, it's now definitively clear that the iceberg didn't punch one large hole in the hull. It created a series of narrow cracks totaling just 1 to 2 square meters. But that was enough to flood 6 watertight compartments simultaneously. The ship was designed to survive 4 at most. The Titanic was doomed from the very first second of impact. But now for the difficult part. The Titanic is deteriorating. Right now, as we speak. The ship's greatest enemy isn't water pressure or ocean currents. It's a bacterium, Halomonas titanicae, discovered in 2010 on the wreck itself and named in its honor. It feeds on iron, literally consuming the steel hull. Those orange-brown rusticles hanging from the ship's sides in every famous photograph. That's its work. Every day, the bacteria destroy an estimated 100 to 200 kilograms of steel. The hull grows weaker year by year. In 2024, an expedition recorded a significant and sobering moment. A 5-meter section of railing on the port side of the bow collapsed to the seafloor, the very railing where Jack and Rose stood in Cameron's film. Now, it lies in the silt. Scientists estimate that within 30 to 40 years, the bow could collapse entirely. By the end of the century, the famous silhouette may be nothing but a rust stain on the ocean floor. That's why every new expedition, every new photograph, is an irreplaceable document, a record of something we risk losing forever. A debate has been raging around the Titanic for 4 decades. Should objects be recovered from the wreck? One American company has raised more than 5,500 artifacts, now displayed in exhibitions around the world. Supporters argue that everything will disappear with the ship anyway, so it's better to preserve what we can for future generations. Robert Ballard, the man who found the Titanic, is firmly against it. His position is simple. The Titanic is not a treasure site or a museum. It's a mass grave. He said it plainly. Don't touch the Titanic, and don't get married on it. That second warning wasn't random. In 2001, an American couple held a wedding ceremony on the Titanic's deck inside a submersible. Many considered it a desecration. Legally, the question remains unresolved. The ship lies in international waters and technically belongs to no one. In 2003, UNESCO added the wreck to its list of underwater cultural heritage sites, but meaningful enforcement is still largely absent. In June 2023, the tourist submersible Titan, operated by OceanGate, imploded during a dive to the Titanic. All 5 people on board died instantly. More than a century later, the Titanic is still claiming the lives of those who try to reach it. And yet, it's still there. Its decks catch the light of our flood lamps. Its portholes stare into the darkness like the eyes of someone who remembers everything, but will never speak again. Somewhere in the silt lies a single shoe, a pair of cups, a child's toy. Somewhere in the dark, a bronze Diana lies, face up toward a sky she will never see. In 100 years, there may be nothing left, just a faint shadow in the sediment. But for now, the Titanic still holds April 1912. That world which sank forever. The world between the last dinner and the first cry for help. And as long as we remember, it will never fully disappear.